everyone, and welcome to week 13. So at this point, you are hopefully you are very close to submitting your results section, and you will be finalizing it this week. And then you are going to start looking ahead to next week, where you will be putting together the last written piece of your paper, the discussion section. Plus, we need to put together that title page to make your paper complete and professional. So I know this is crunch time, but you're so close. So let's talk about what you need to do this week and next week to bring everything together. So think about how far you've come. You've written an introduction that laid out the scientific context for your research. You've written a methods section that explained exactly what you did. You are completing your results section this week, where you will present your findings clearly and objectively. And now comes the discussion next week. So this is your chance to be an actual scientist and interpret what your data means. So the discussion is where you get to think critically, where you make arguments supported by research, and where you explain the significance of what you found. It's also the longest section you'll write, and it's the most intellectually demanding, okay? So prepare yourself for that. This week is mostly about finishing up the results section. So there's less new content and more application of what you've learned. So you've got your instructions for the discussion section, which I'm going to walk through with you. You'll also be creating your title page, which brings your whole paper together professionally. So you have two main tasks this week. The results section, if you haven't already submitted it, I know a couple of you worked ahead, but it is due the end of the week. So if you haven't submitted your results section, it's due this Friday, or Saturday, Friday, whatever day is due, okay? Just ignore me, my brain is spacing. So whatever day Canvas says is the day that's due. If you've already turned it in, great, move on. But if you're still working on it, make sure you get it finished and submitted this week. You can't move forward to the discussion without having your results locked in. So assignment 2, which is due next week, not this week, next week. Again, I'm just giving it to you ahead of time so that you can start working on it. This is the final written section of your paper, and it's important. So let's talk about that. Where are we at? Okay. So the discussion, right? So I should point out, let me just go back. Okay, so I gave you the results section last week to start working on, but it is not due until this week, okay, results. And then the discussion is then due next week, okay? So this is just a repeat of what I gave you last week, and this is the new assignment, and then you also have your title page instructions, okay? So let's talk about the discussion section first, because it's the big deal, okay? So your discussion should be between 2 and 4 pages, okay? That's substantial, but it's not enormous, it's not crazy. And you'll need all of those pages to do the work properly, okay? So let me open up the discussion assignment, okay? So you have your instructions here. Oops. Okay, so you've got all your instructions. So start your discussion with a clear statement about whether your results support or refute your hypothesis. This is your main finding. So did you predict what would happen, and did it happen, or were you surprised? So state this clearly and directly. This opening paragraph sets up everything that follows for you, okay? So, okay, that's sort of the opening paragraph section. And then the middle paragraph is where you're going to, paragraphs, plural, is where you're going to be exploring your findings. So this is where the real intellectual work happens. You're going to discuss what your results actually mean. You're going to connect your findings to the research you read in your introduction. You're going to say things like, this finding is consistent with previous research by Smith, who also found blah, blah, blah. Or interestingly, our results contradict earlier studies by Jones, who argued that blah, blah, blah. A good rule of thumb is to dedicate at least one paragraph to each of your major findings or figures. So if you have 3 main results, you should have at least 3 discussion paragraphs. So here's the critical part. You must support every statement you make with a reference, unless it is your opinion. This is not research. It really isn't the place for your personal opinion, but I shouldn't have said opinion. It could be your interpretation. Okay. So you're building an argument based on scientific evidence. The argument is yours, but the scientific evidence is other people's. So every claim needs backing, and that's what makes it credible. Okay. But the discussion is your interpretation. So in a sense, it is your opinion, but it has to be a scientifically based opinion. So you still need to reference the evidence for your opinion. Okay, and you're going to compare and contrast it to what has been found. You might say these results, so and so found the same thing, or so and so found something opposite, and so your results contradict that. Okay, so those are the sorts of things that you go into with the discussion section. Okay, so the last paragraph is where you discuss what didn't go perfectly in your study. Every study has limitations. Maybe you had a small sample size. Maybe your survey didn't capture everything you wanted to measure. Maybe you had participants drop out, or maybe you realized after the fact that one of your survey questions was confusing. So be honest about this. Good scientists acknowledge where their work could be stronger. So then use this final paragraph to suggest future research directions. What would you want to study next based on what you found? Or what should other people study based on what you found? What questions did your research raise? How could someone build on your work? This shows you, this shows that you understand that science is an ongoing conversation, and every study opens doors for the next study. Okay, so you need at least what did we do? 10 references in your discussion section. Oh no, I'm sorry. Time out. You did 10 references before. Okay, that also included your introduction section. Your discussion section needs 5 to 10 references. You can reuse some references from your introduction if they're relevant, but you must add new references. Okay, your discussion should cite sources that help you interpret, help you to contextualize your findings and your results. If you ran a correlation test and found a weak relationship, maybe cite a study that explains why correlations matter, or what weak correlations might mean, or maybe a study that also found a weak correlation, or maybe a study that found a strong correlation, so you can contrast it to your weak correlation. So if your results were surprising, find research that addresses why your findings might differ from what others have found. Okay, so then your title page. Okay. Your title page, it's one page. It's simple, but it is important. So here's what needs to be on it. You need a descriptive title that includes all your main variables, not just research study or survey results. You need your full name. Let me see. I'm pretty sure I should have. So here's everything you need. And there is an example below. Okay. So your full name, the college, the course number and the name, your professor's name, that's me, the date you're submitting the paper. Okay. So this is an APA formatted title page. So the title page should be double-spaced, Times New Roman, 12 font, 1-inch margins. So look at the example I've provided. It's straightforward. The title itself is centered in bold, and everything else is spaced out nicely on the page. Your title is important because if someone reads just your title, they should understand what your study is about. So don't title it Psychology Research Paper. Instead, something like The Relationship Between Childhood Experience and Depressive Symptoms in College Students. Tells readers exactly what they're looking at. Okay, so submitting your assignment. So again, all assignments must be submitted as Google Docs links, and I need to have editor access. Okay, so this helps me to, to read everything that you've submitted, makes it easier for revisions, all that good stuff. So when you submit, don't just upload a Word or PDF document. As a matter of fact, I don't think you even can. I think I have it, so it's just a URL. But make sure that I have editor access, because I hate constantly having to ask students to give me access to their paper. Okay, and I always have to do it like 50 times each assignment. So try to remember that. So submit it, make it shareable, make sure you give me editor access, all that good stuff. So by the end of this next week, you'll have a complete research paper. Okay, you'll have the title page, you'll have the introduction, you'll have the methods, results, the discussion, which you're doing next week, and the reference page. Okay, so a real research paper, which is something you should be proud of, okay, because this is exactly what us academics, us researchers do when we publish a real scientific paper. What you're doing is writing a real scientific paper. Okay, so my recommendations for you this week: make sure your results section is submitted and finalized. read the discussion instructions carefully, study the example discussion I provided, start thinking about how you'll interpret your findings. End of this week into next week, start drafting your opening paragraph about whether your hypothesis was supported. Start writing paragraphs and maybe outline the discussion section. That always helps me to get an outline of what I'm going to be talking about. And you can start writing your paragraphs discussing each of your main findings. And as you write, actively search for site research that relates to your findings. Write your final paragraph about limitations, future directions. Start outlining, start working on all of those. By the end of next week, you'll have to finish your discussion section. You'll have actually created your title page, finish doing that, and then you'll start compiling everything together into one Google Docs document, do your final proofreading and all of that good stuff, and then you'll be submitting your paper pretty soon, okay? So a few final thoughts. You've done something really impressive here, believe it or not, okay? You designed a study, collected data from real people, analyzed it statistically, now you're interpreting what it all means. That's legitimate research, right? It might not change the world, not yet anyways, but it's the process that real scientists follow, like I said. So the discussion section is, for me, it's the funnest section. It's where you get to think like a researcher. You're not just reporting the data anymore. You're explaining it, questioning it, connecting it to the broader body of knowledge. And that's where, if you're interested in intellectual stuff, that's where the intellectual excitement of research really happens. So you're almost done. You've got this. You're at week 13. That means you've already done the hard work, and these last assignments, you're getting really close to finishing it, okay? So if you have questions about how to write your results, how to do your discussions, how to find references, how to whatever, reach out, okay? So I am excited to find what you found in your research, excited to read what you found in your research. So I've watched you work on this project all semester, and some of your ideas are really interesting, and so I can't wait to see the final product. So good luck this week and next week, and you're going to do great. Again, reach out if you have any questions, and I am always here to help.